So those of you that have been following my channel, you know that I've been anticipating the launch of Habit Rouge Spirit. It was announced about a month ago. But as I said, if you were following this channel, I've been anticipating this since probably at the end of last year. One of my followers sent me some images of this fragrance, and apparently they were trying to buy the Parfum edition, which came out last year, and they ended up with a bottle of Spirit. And they were not sure why it's called Spirit, so we knew that this was coming months before the announcement, and it's finally out, and I've got a bottle here, and I have been testing it and comparing it with the Parfum edition, which launched last year, as both of the fragrances are Parfum concentration. I'm going to let you know all about this fragrance and what I think about it coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Sebastian, talking to you about the new Guerlain Habit Rouge Spirit. Are you a fan of this series of fragrances? The original was launched way back in the 60s, but it was redone in the early 2000s, and Eau de Parfum at that time launched as well. And along the way, there's been multiple flankers here and there. And last year, they launched the Parfum, which has become my favorite in the series. And I hate to say this, it's still my favorite when I compare it against the Spirit. So Spirit and the Parfum edition are not so different. And also, when I bought my Spirit from Guerlain Boutique in Paris, in the Marais, I think is where I bought it from, they told me this was not a limited edition, but I feel like, from what everybody said, and after seeing the website, it is a limited edition, just like the ROUGE PARFUM that came out 2 years ago around the same time. So I looked all over for the ROUGE PARFUM. I don't see it selling anywhere, so most likely this ROUGE Spirit, the Habit Rouge Spirit, is going to be similar. It'll disappear in about 2 years because it is definitely a limited edition. So it's a 2025 launch, once again created by Delphine Jelk. It features notes of vanilla absolute, oak barrels, nutmeg, and iris. And of course, as I said, it's a Parfum concentration. And to me, comparing these two side by side, the Spirit against the Parfum, they are so close. There's some differences, but they're very, very close. So I feel like the booziness was already present in the original Parfum. The booziness, I feel like, is very similar when you're going from the Spirit to the Parfum. The boozy effect that is in the fragrance. And even though the Spirit doesn't mention the rum note that the Habit Rouge Parfum has credited to it, I still get the booziness. But for me, the difference is that I think they've got an amplified oak barrel note in the Spirit, and it gives you a bit more of a woods and booze combo rather than just the booze in the Parfum. Also, one thing I should say, the Habit Rouge Spirit also acts and performs just like the Parfum, but I felt like I got a bit better performance with the Parfum in comparison to the Spirit. But I also think that the Spirit was recently manufactured and bottled, and I've had the Parfum for over a year now, and so maybe the Parfum has gotten a bit more aged and concentrated in comparison to the Spirit, which I think will happen the same. But I get great performance from the Parfum, and I got pretty good performance from the Spirit as well. I think they both perform really well, but I just got a little bit more of performance from the Parfum, and I think it's because of the aging in the bottle. It's been sitting in the bottle for over a year. But yeah, I think eventually the Spirit will act the same as the Parfum. At least that's what I'm feeling. And the fact that I have only one bottle of the Spirit, I think I'm just going to keep it safekeeping as a collector. I'm not going to use it because since the Parfum is readily available and I can buy more, I'll focus on wearing the Parfum. And you know, when I wear the Parfum, the Habit Rouge Parfum smells so amazing on me. It smells fantastic. Also, it's got pretty decent projection and also longevity. Like one time recently, when I was testing these two fragrances out, I sprayed it overnight, woke up around 8 a.m. I could still smell both of the fragrances on skin. So it's got pretty good longevity while spraying the fragrances on around 8:30 at night and waking up around 7 in the morning pretty decent for a men's designer offering. The only, I guess, complaint I would have with these, they're not so beefy, even though I think the Parfum concentrations are super strong. I wish they were more of a room filler situation rather than just being really long-lasting fragrances. So if I didn't mention this already, the Habit Rouge Spirit is a collaboration with Hennessy. And if you guys aren't aware, Guerlain and Hennessy are all under the same parent company, under the same umbrella, LVMH, because LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet, and Hennessy is the parent company. And of course, this Guerlain collaboration is Guerlain, Habit Rouge with Hennessy. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a limited edition fragrance, most likely, and again, within the next couple of years, it's going to disappear. But I was testing these two fragrances side by side quite a bit, and I don't find too many differences between the two. So a lot of you were saying this seems to be a redundant release, and I think I would say I agree with you guys. It can be a redundant release because you are not getting too much of a different effect between the Spirit versus the regular Parfum. In fact, when I was testing the two side by side, I still do prefer the Parfum over the Spirit, even though I really like the Spirit, and the fact that I already enjoy the Parfum and I like the way it wears, I enjoy its concentration, its intensity, the vanilla, the rum, and also the patchouli that's in there. The combination is perfection, I think. And when I'm really focusing in on the Spirit, I do get the effect of the oak barrel. It's pretty amplified, but you gotta look for it. If you're not too familiar with, comparing fragrances from one to the other, it might not be present, it might not be noticeable, but it does appear. You'll notice a difference. There's some changes. I initially thought that the booziness might be more concentrated in the Habit Rouge Spirit because it was a collaboration with Hennessy, and that's not the case here. It's mostly the woody oak effect that's been added to the Habit Rouge Spirit that takes a bit more of a center stage in comparison to the rum note. And that is the reason why that I do prefer the Habit Rouge Parfum over the Spirit, and I felt like it just might be just a redundant flanker and not necessarily very necessary to have. But for a collector like me, I definitely into the idea of having the additional flanker. I'm a collector, I enjoy, and yes, I do notice a difference, but for the average person out there who doesn't buy a lot of fragrances, I personally don't think you'll need it, especially if you have the Parfum, because for me, the Parfum is the best in the series now. It has gone into more of a gourmand direction in comparison to the Eau de Toilette and the Eau de Parfum, which the Eau de Toilette and Eau de Parfum has some leathery touches, and the Parfum doesn't really have that as much. You might find traces of it on its dry down stage, but for me, what they've done to the Parfum is made it into a gourmand, and also a very unisex offering. I have noticed very many women are wearing the Habit Rouge Parfum in addition to the Habit Rouge Spirit because of what they've done to that. It doesn't go uber masculine that at one time it did. So yeah, I don't think this is very necessary if you do have the Parfum, but I think if you're a collector and you love the DNA of the Habit Rouge fragrances, and I think you should seek it out, especially for the fact that I doubt the Habit Rouge Spirit will be selling in the States, just like the Rouge Privé wasn't selling in the States, and I think some discounters received some stock, they got it, and a lot of you were buying it, and of course some of you ended up with it and found it to be a bit too animalic. So with the Rouge Privé, what they've done is they've taken the original Habit Rouge, which did feature the leather, and they have completely amplified the leather in the Rouge Privé. So it's the opposite of the Parfum and the Spirit. But honestly, if I haven't mentioned this already in previous videos, the two together are so delicious. So you've got the gourmand touches in the Parfum and the leathery touches in the Rouge Privé, and they balance each other out to give it a bit more of a masculine edge with the leather, but also having the booziness and also the vanillic touches of the Parfum. Really solid, because in the end it's pretty much the same DNA, right? It's the Habit Rouge formula, and they're just tweaking it and sending the fragrance into different directions, and it kind of balances each other out. So yeah, I think the fact that the Habit Rouge Rouge Privé was gone. Same thing will happen with the Spirit as well. I personally like it, but if I had to pick between the Spirit and the Parfum, it's definitely the Parfum. I just like the way it smells. It's the original, and that oak barrel thing was, you know, rubbing me a little bit in the wrong way, even though it mostly smells the same as the Parfum, and so I much prefer the Parfum over the Spirit. But what do you guys think? Have you tried it? Have you tried the Spirit? Have you gotten your nose on it? And if you haven't gotten your nose on the Parfum, I believe the Parfum is selling. I know Neiman Marcus here in San Francisco does carry the Parfum. In fact, they carry the Parfum in Vetiver. They carry the Parfum in the L'Homme Ideal. And then also the Habit Rouge Parfum. Between the 3 Parfums that were launched from Guerlain last year, my favorite turned out to be Habit Rouge Parfum. Absolutely love the way it smells. It's fantastic. My second favorite, I should also say it's the strongest of the 3 Parfums. And the second favorite was the Vetiver. I think it had the intensity, but it is basically that woody vetiver with some citrusy zing to it. The L'Homme Ideal was also super delicious, but for me, between the 3 Parfums, it was the weakest. I just wish it has more oomph from it. It didn't, sadly. But the Habit Rouge Parfum was one of my most favorite male-targeted mass-market releases of 2024. Now, all I could wish for is L'Instant de Guerlain Pour Homme to be launched as a Parfum, and also Heritage. Come on, these deserve the Parfum concentration fragrances, don't you guys think? Let me know if you're a fan of Guerlain's men's fragrances and the fact that they're doing Parfum concentration fragrances these days. And which men's fragrance from Guerlain is your favorite? I know they've got some discontinued stuff that we're not able to buy anymore, but the fact that they're now launching Parfum concentration of very popular long-standing fragrances, I like the idea, and I think they did a pretty good job with the 3 Parfum fragrances from Guerlain. I just wish they would launch Parfums of, like I said, the L'Instant de Guerlain Pour Homme and also the Heritage, which I think the Heritage totally deserves it. It's definitely one of the best men's fragrances ever created. It's a fantastic DNA. So hopefully we'll see that. But in the meantime, if you're a really big fan of Habit Rouge, get yourself a bottle or try and find yourself a bottle of Habit Rouge Spirit. But if you can't, don't stress, you know, don't stress. I think the Parfum will just be fine. If you have the Parfum, you do not need it. And as I said, if you only get it if you are a collector and you want to have the entire collection. Anyway, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Please like this video, please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.